My husband and I had already agreed before getting married that we wouldn't have children within 3 years. We wanted to enjoy our time together as a couple thoroughly before having kids. Unexpectedly, a routine physical examination after marriage completely changed my mind. The reason was that my husband Henry was simply unable to have children. He had azoospermia. I immediately decided to conceal his actual physical condition from him. After all, he was a man and cared a great deal about this aspect. After careful consideration, I directly told my husband that I didn't want children for the rest of my life. We would love each other for a lifetime and then make an agreement to go to a nursing home together in the future. Who would have thought that in the 7th year after marriage, I discovered that he had an affair and even had a child? It was not long after I had just changed to a new hospital. I was working the night shift and was extremely busy in the emergency room. At this time, someone outside the consultation room was shouting loudly, "Doctor, doctor, save my child quickly, hurry up." Out of the instinct of a medical worker, I rushed outside immediately and saw a scene that I would never forget for the rest of my life. My husband was holding a boy in his hands, and a woman with an equally anxious face was following behind. He looked flustered and immediately rushed towards me when he saw me. "Nurse, save my son quickly. He's choking on something he ate." Instinctively, I took the child and without thinking too much, I used the Heimlich maneuver. Soon, a hard object was dislodged from the child's throat. However, the child still showed no signs of waking up, and his complexion was getting worse. Seeing that the child was still in a critical condition, my husband snatched the child from my hands and ran towards the doctor. Then, a series of cardiopulmonary resuscitation was carried out, and finally the child was out of danger. When the child was okay, my husband leaned against the wall as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders, while the woman who came with him was cuddling up to him with tears all over her face. Little did they know that I had already been crying my eyes red. During the rescue process, all the information about the child had been filled out. Luke, 5 years old this year, Mother Sophia, Father Henry. Luke. There was really a touch of irony in this name. It could be confirmed that my husband Henry had an affair during our marriage and the child was already 5 years old. I couldn't describe how I felt. It was just horrible. If I hadn't just changed to a new hospital and hadn't had time to tell my, on a business trip, husband. If they hadn't been so worried about the child's safety and hadn't noticed me wearing a mask. How would Henry have dealt with the situation today? A colleague noticed that I wasn't in a good state. She thought I was just tired and told me to go and have a rest quickly, not giving Henry a chance to recognize me. In the lounge, I was crying my heart out alone. I don't know how long it had been. When I was tired of crying, I also calmed down. The child being 5 years old meant that Henry had an affair in the 2nd year after we got married. If it hadn't been for fate that led me to discover this, how long were they planning to keep me in the dark and treat me like a fool? Or were they making other plans? There was that possibility. When Henry and I got married, he didn't even have the betrothal money. It was I who used my own private savings to save his face in front of my parents. Later, with my persuasion, Henry changed to another company and his life took off from then on. Otherwise, with his inflexible personality, he would never have made it in the original company even if he had stayed there for a lifetime. Now Henry's career was really thriving and he had a lot of money in his wallet. More importantly, I had never been interested in his money. After all, we had both decided not to have children for a lifetime. If we had money, we might as well spend it. Why should we make things difficult for ourselves? But that didn't mean I would allow him to have an affair outside and even have a child. This time Henry told me that he would be on a business trip for half a month. Counting the days, he had only been on a business trip for a week. Goodness gracious, he had directly gone to his mistress's place on this business trip. Moreover, before going on the business trip, he was still so affectionate with me, saying that he would only love me for the rest of his life. It was really disgusting. However, perhaps Henry still didn't know that he had azoospermia. My well-intentioned lie had actually been of great help. He was being cuckolded and raising someone else's child as his own son. How ridiculous. Just when I was about to tell Henry the truth regardless of everything, a voice in my head pulled me back, leading me to recall all the good times during our 7-year marriage. If I hadn't discovered Henry's affair, he would still be the perfect husband in my heart. He had been extremely good to me, so good that there was nothing to criticize. On every festival and every birthday, he would create surprises for me. Even the slightest fluctuation in my heart would be detected by him immediately. Yes, he had been deceived. It must be that woman named Sophia who was after his money and pestered him relentlessly. He had no choice but to compromise. Henry still loved me. Otherwise, why hadn't he mentioned divorce? Thinking of this, I immediately perked up, quickly washed my face and put on a light makeup. Knowing that the child had been transferred to the ward for observation, I walked towards the ward. I was going to tell Henry that he had been deceived and that the child wasn't his son. He would surely come to his senses and live a good life with me. However, I heard something outside the ward. "Husband, why haven't you divorced that barren hen yet? This time our son has narrowly escaped death. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have a proper status." Just. The woman was complaining to Henry while crying. "Baby, don't cry. I'm trying to figure out a way. The main problem is that I can't get hold of Elena's weakness. It would be great if she could have an affair." What did I hear? Henry had indeed thought about divorcing me. "You always say that, but you can't find any evidence of her affair every time. If she never has an affair in her life, does that mean my son and I will have to live without a proper status for the rest of our lives?" Woo-woo. What a pitiful sight. I knew that Henry was easily soft-hearted. Alas. "Baby, I really am trying to figure out a way. I've already spent money to hire someone to seduce her. Let's see if she takes the bait." What? I suspected that I had misheard. "Sophia, it's not easy for me to have my current position in the company. Once there's trouble at home, my job will be in jeopardy. So I can't make mistakes. If I want a divorce, there's only one way, to make Elena make mistakes." Henry was patiently explaining to his mistress. My heart was completely chilled. "Isn't it her fault that she can't have children?" Sophia said with tears streaming down her face, looking so pitiful that it was really touching. "It's not that she can't have children. We had already agreed long ago that we wouldn't have children for the rest of our lives." Hearing this, I left without looking back. All the thoughts of trying to win Henry back vanished completely. This man wasn't worth it. Wasn't he afraid of losing his job? The more he was afraid of something, the more I was determined to make it happen to him. Elena, will surely make Henry pay the price. And that mistress named Sophia as well. I'll let you know how terrifying the consequences of telling such a huge lie can be. Back at home, I made a phone call to Henry. "Honey, when are you coming back? I miss you so much." Acting. I was telling myself that this was just acting, otherwise I definitely wouldn't be able to say these words. "Baby, why are you missing me? How about I ask for leave from the company and go back to see you earlier?" There was still concern for me in his tone. If it were before, I would surely have believed that he loved me and that every word he said was true. But now, with a sneer on my lips, I told him that he couldn't ask for leave, saying that it had been so hard for him to get to his current position and he should perform even better. Henry comforted me a few more words and also said that he would give me a surprise when he came back. I knew what the surprise he mentioned was. It was nothing more than buying a gift to make me happy. He used to do this often. A necklace, a tube of lipstick or a set of skin care products could make me happy for a long time. But after knowing the truth, I really felt that all my previous emotions were not worth it. Maybe Henry was giving something to that despicable mistress and just buying something for me incidentally. Disgusting. After hanging up the phone, I packed up all the things that Henry had given me. The things he gave were only worthy of being thrown into the trash can. After finishing this, I called my best girlfriend and asked her to come out for dinner together. Nora, my childhood best friend. Our two families were neighbors when we were little. Later, we went to school together and even went to the same university. Even more coincidentally, she is now a pediatrician in the hospital where I work. Why did you ask me out so urgently? Nora looked tired. She also worked the night shift last night. I went straight to the point and told her everything about what happened last night. Immediately, Nora was wide awake, looking at me angrily and saying, "Damn it. Men are all no good. What is Henry? I'll teach him a lesson for you." Having grown up together since childhood, don't I know her personality? I immediately calmed Nora down and told her not to be impatient. The most important thing at the moment was to find out about the Mistress Sophia's background. Only by knowing the enemy in ourselves can we give the other side the best blow. Nora had always been more obedient to me since childhood. Hearing what I said, most of her hot temper disappeared immediately. She told me that when she went to work in the afternoon, she would go to check on the patients and take the opportunity to find out about Sophia's situation. I also reminded her of one prerequisite, that was, she must choose a time when Henry wasn't there. After all, Henry was very familiar with Nora. Once he saw Nora, it would surely be exposed, and then it would be difficult to solve the problem. Nora promised me wholeheartedly and also said that she would help me get revenge and such things. After separating from Nora, I thought for a long time by myself. Actually, I could have taken matters into my own hands in this matter. After all, I was a nurse, and there were plenty of opportunities to get close to the mistress. But then I thought that Henry's son with her was already 5 years old. Maybe the mistress already knew what I looked like. Once this matter was out in the open, it would mean scaring the snake away. I still hadn't fully grasped the evidence of Henry's affair. I couldn't be impatient. Just as I had made up my mind in my heart and was waiting quietly for the news from Nora, suddenly someone knocked on the door. Who could it be at this time? I lived on the 19th floor. There was a building entrance door downstairs, and you needed to swipe your card to take the elevator. Besides neighbors, it could only be the property management staff who could knock on the door directly. Thinking of this, I opened the door directly. Who are you? Surprisingly, there was a handsome guy I had never seen before standing outside the door. He was very young and incredibly handsome at first sight. Hello, neighbor. I just moved in downstairs. There's some water leakage in the bathroom. It seemed that no one had been living downstairs in my building, so I didn't think much about it when he said that. After checking, it turned out that it wasn't my bathroom that was leaking, so I asked him to go back and check the reason again. The young handsome guy took the initiative to ask for my WeChat, saying that it would be convenient to contact me if there was anything. He was Sebastian, 5 years younger than me, unmarried, calling me sister one after another, and also asking me to introduce a girlfriend to him. To this, I just nodded and agreed perfunctorily. After all, I was now fully occupied with waiting for the news from Nora and thinking about how to deal with Henry. Sure enough, Nora didn't disappoint me. She quickly got a short recording and brought it to my house in person. Sophia, why are you still getting involved with that man? It's clearly my son, but you let him call someone else dad. What do you want me to think? Go away, don't say those useless things. Henry will be here soon. It'll be troublesome if he sees you. I won't go. Luke is my son. I want to take care of him here. Useless thing. With your monthly salary of 3,000 yuan, how can you take care of your son? When you can earn 30,000, I promise to let him recognize you as his father. Hearing this, Nora looked at me with pride. Elena, I never fail when I take action. I ignored Nora. All my attention was on listening to the recording. This recording was made by Nora when she was making her rounds. Before she entered the ward, she heard the quarreling voices inside and had the quick wit to record it. To be honest, after hearing these, I felt a sense of relief in my heart. Henry would never have thought that the son he had brought up wasn't his own, and the biological father of the child had always been playing the role of the mistress between him and Sophia. At this moment, there was another knock on the door. It was the handsome young guy who had just moved in. He came this time to borrow some soy sauce. As soon as he entered the door and saw Nora in the room, he immediately said in an exaggerated way, "Sister, it's really unfair. Why are all of your friends so beautiful? Can I have 2 beautiful sisters all at once?" I have to say that the public relations skills of this newly moved-in neighbor, the handsome young guy, are really extraordinary. Under the influence of his flattering words, Nora soon invited him to stay for lunch at my place. Seeing my reluctant expression, Nora volunteered to buy groceries and cook. Just like that, the newly moved-in handsome guy was kept by Nora, and the 3 of us had one drink after another until we were completely drunk. Later on, my mother-in-law suddenly showed up. Somehow she got a key and opened the door, only to see the 3 of us lying sprawled on the floor. My mother-in-law was instantly furious and roared as she yanked me up from the floor. Elena, you're actually fooling around with a man behind my son's back. My mother-in-law's voice was already loud, and with her rage reaching the sky, it almost blew the roof off. Her shout sobered me up more than half, and it also woke Nora up. Mom. I hurriedly straightened my clothes and smoothed my hair before saying, why are you here? My mother-in-law lived in the county town and hardly ever came here. She wouldn't visit unless there was something important. Why am I here? If I didn't come, would I have seen you fooling around with a man here? My mother-in-law pointed at me, her face flushed red with anger. I didn't. I weakly explained, thinking how unlucky I was to be caught red-handed. Fortunately, Nora was here. My best friend immediately helped me explain too. At this time, Sebastian also woke up. He rubbed his eyes and said, Sister, what's going on? Who is she? I quickly glared at him. How could this guy be so clueless? He should go home quickly instead of getting in the way here. You ask her who I am. Come on, ask. My mother-in-law roared at Sebastian angrily. Alas. I really didn't expect Sebastian to be so clueless. He actually retorted directly, Old lady, can't you be a bit more polite? How can you talk to my sister like that? Sebastian's words completely ignited my mother-in-law's fury, and they almost got into a fight. My mother-in-law threatened to call the police while calling her son at the same time. Henry's arrival finally put an end to this whole farce. By this time, Nora and I were even more disheveled because we were trying to break up the fight. On the sofa, Nora and I sat together, my mother-in-law sat at the other end, and Henry brought a chair and sat opposite us. As for Sebastian, I had sent him home the moment Henry arrived. Two grown men could easily get into a real fight, and if someone got accidentally hurt, the situation would be even worse. Henry looked at me with a gloomy face, and I also lowered my head as if I had done something wrong. Today's events were really unexpected for me. First, I didn't expect Sebastian to get drunk at my place. Second, I didn't expect my mother-in-law to come. Third, and most importantly, at the crucial moment when I had discovered Henry's affair, something like this that was unfavorable to me happened. I was really being too careless. Elena, I want to hear your explanation. Henry started with a question. I muttered softly, what's there to explain? We were just having a drink. Son, you didn't see what I saw when I came in. She was even lying on that guy's arm. What kind of wife would do such a thing? I didn't say anything all these years even though she couldn't have children, but this time, son, I will never allow our Henry family to have such a daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law's words sent a shiver through my whole body. She was forcing her son to divorce me. After learning about Henry's affair, I was definitely going to divorce him, but it shouldn't be him who brought it up. Overnight, my plans were completely disrupted, and I was flustered. I couldn't help but hold my best friend's hand tightly. Seeing this, Nora said, Henry, why don't you say anything about your mother yelling at people as soon as she entered the room? How can you blame Elena? Her words were like a spark that set Henry off too. He was so furious that he almost smashed the house. And my mother-in-law even threatened Henry, saying that if he didn't divorce me, she would jump off here. By now, I had failed before I even started. There was only the option of a desperate fight. Henry, weren't you on a business trip? How did your mother manage to get you back with just one phone call? I calmed down and pointed out Henry's loophole. I knew very well that his business trip was just a lie to me. Now it was up to him to explain himself. I came back early and then received my mother's call. Coincidentally, if I hadn't come back, who knows what you would have done to my mother. Good for you. I almost wanted to applaud Henry's excuse in my heart. Fine, then how do you explain these? Suddenly, I threw out a few photos, all of which were pictures of Henry holding the child in the emergency room that night. Henry, you had an affair behind my back and have a 5-year-old son. Am I right? I looked at him rather smugly. To my surprise, Henry had a calm expression on his face, but his sinister eyes were really frightening. Elena, we'll only know if it's my son after a paternity test. I can't be assumed to be the father just because I'm holding a child, right? I quickly said, okay then, let him do the test with the child right away. Unexpectedly, Henry actually agreed. Something unusual must be up. When we rushed to the hospital to question them that day, we found that the woman and the child were gone. They had disappeared without a trace. I panicked. It's impossible. How could they just disappear like that? Having reached this point with Henry, if I really couldn't produce evidence of his affair, the consequence would surely be divorce, and I would be the one at a disadvantage. However, we searched every corner of the hospital but didn't see Sophia and her son. They seemed to have vanished into thin air. After that, Henry left with a parting shot, wait for the lawyer's letter. He left with his mother. Afterwards, I had a good cry, but I knew that what was meant to come would come. The divorce was really going to happen, but I wouldn't get any benefits from it. I took a few days off to try to calm myself down. I didn't even tell my parents about these things. Firstly, I was afraid they would worry. Secondly, they never liked Henry in the first place. I was worried that if they said something sarcastic, it would upset me even more. Soon, Henry and his mother showed up again with a lawyer. Elena, let's part on good terms. It was your fault first. I'll give you 100,000 yuan symbolically. Let's get a divorce. I got angry as soon as I heard this. The house we're living in now is worth at least over 1 million yuan. Henry's car is worth 500,000 yuan, and his bank deposits add up to at least 2 or 3 million yuan in total. He means to give me just 100,000 yuan and get divorced? Nice try. Although I messed things up, it's a fact that Henry had an affair. I played the recording that Nora helped me get in the hospital and sneered, "Henry, you probably don't know this, but that child isn't yours at all." After saying that, I was expecting Henry to look furious. He had been raising someone else's child for years. He must be really angry. Unexpectedly, after listening to the recording, Henry just smiled lightly and said, "Elena, I think you've really gone crazy." He didn't care. He didn't care at all. What a surprise. Seeing that I hadn't hit Henry where it hurt, I wanted to play my trump card and tell him about his azoospermia. Anyway, that child wasn't his. But a voice in my heart told me to hold back. Somehow, I held it in again. Tears slid down my slightly pale cheeks. In the past, whenever I cried, Henry would surely comfort me. I wanted to give it a try. Sure enough, seeing me in tears, Henry's attitude softened. He told me to name my terms, and as long as they weren't too excessive, he was willing to meet them. "Henry, it'll be our 7th wedding anniversary in 1 month. I want to wait until after that day to get divorced. Is that okay?" My mother-in-law got anxious as soon as she heard this. She urged Henry to kick me out as soon as possible, saying that their Henry family didn't want a barren hen, nor a slut who would cuckold others. I looked at Henry pitifully, and finally he nodded and agreed to wait for another month. Afterwards, my best friend Nora scolded me for being stupid. She said that a man like this should be divorced immediately. Why wait? I said that if I divorced Henry now, I'd be too passive and get nothing. Nora said that even if I had to pay him, I should still get divorced. I just laughed it off. During the 1-month waiting period for the divorce, I didn't live at home. I didn't care whether Henry went home or not either. I took a 1-month leave from the hospital, and even my best friend Nora didn't know where I went. In fact, on the second day after Henry showed up with the lawyer, I took action and hired a well-known private detective in the city. I paid a large sum of money and asked him to investigate Henry thoroughly for me as quickly as possible. Yes, I became suspicious. I started to suspect on the second day after Sebastian showed up at my house. And I was even more suspicious after Sebastian got drunk at my house for no reason that day. Because I clearly heard Henry say in the hospital that day that he wanted to find evidence of my affair and hire someone to seduce me. Sebastian showed up right after that. The timing matched. I know my drinking capacity. How could someone who can handle a whole gin of baijiu get drunk after just a few drinks? The wine we drank that day was probably tampered with by Sebastian. After that, the disappearance of Sophia and her son completely broke the chain of evidence, making the whole thing even more mysterious. I've always been the type to take losses since I was a child, but I want to know clearly when I take losses. I couldn't just let Henry get away with his affair and also scheme against me after I knew the truth. But what I didn't expect was that the truth made me see human nature clearly. On this day, the private detective asked to meet me and gave me all the recent investigation materials. I was stunned. I was dumbfounded. "Are these all true?" I asked in disbelief. "Miss Elena, don't doubt my professionalism. I've seen even more melodramatic plots than this. Yours is nothing, he answered casually. Staring at the private detective, I tried to find something on his face. However, in the end, I believed everything he had investigated. I didn't tell anyone about hiring the private detective, not even my most trusted best friend Nora. During this time, I didn't even answer her calls. Except for contacting my parents, I ignored everyone else. So the private detective in front of me was reliable. I shouldn't doubt his investigation results. Even though the materials showed that my good best friend, Nora, who had grown up with me, had an affair with my husband Henry. No wonder Henry could be so calm. No wonder Sophia and her son disappeared without a trace. How ironic. What in this world is real? Who should I believe? However, after going through the previous turmoil, I'm much calmer now. I gave the private detective an additional 100,000 yuan and asked him to do one thing for me. Time passed quickly. It was our wedding anniversary. I had already made an agreement with Henry before that. We would part on good terms. I wanted to hold a proper wedding anniversary and invite all his friends and colleagues. To draw a perfect ending to our marriage. At first, Henry didn't agree. I begged him, lowering myself to the lowest level possible. Finally, he agreed. The venue for the event was chosen to be the same hotel where we got married. I dressed myself up elaborately and showed up alone in full attire. Oh, I also invited my best friend. When I called her, Nora was really worried. She asked me straight away how I had disappeared and told me that when a man has an affair, you should take revenge instead of being a coward. On the other end of the phone, I sneered and didn't get into that issue. Instead, I invited her to participate in my wedding anniversary event. At first, Nora tried to persuade me not to hold any wedding anniversary event or something like that. Later, seeing that she couldn't change my mind, she directly agreed to participate. I arrived at the hotel before Henry. I also invited some colleagues from the hospital now, including the hospital director. They had no idea what was going on, so when we met, all they said were words of congratulations. Henry arrived. His look at me was a bit unnatural, and I even saw a trace of guilt on his face. Elena, Don't say anything, Henry. I already know everything. After saying that, I walked towards the stage, took the microphone from the host, and signaled Henry to come up too. Dear friends, today is the 7th anniversary of my marriage with Henry. I've been waiting for this day for too long, and I have so much to say. However, I'd like to give my husband Henry a big gift first. As soon as I finished speaking, the waiter walked over with a tray. What is this? Henry asked, looking at the tray covered with an exquisite stainless steel lid, not knowing what was going on. I smiled and signaled the waiter to open the tray. What came into view was a piece of paper. Henry, have a look. This is the first big gift I'm giving you. Henry looked at me, then at the paper in the tray. He slowly picked it up. Soon, he threw the paper away in disbelief. Impossible, this is impossible. Everyone had no idea what was happening. They only saw Henry getting excited all of a sudden. I quickly picked up that piece of paper. Everyone, I believe you must be curious about what's written on this paper. I held up the paper and said, see, the paper has turned slightly yellow, which means it's been around for a while. This is a medical examination report from 7 years ago, and it says. I was just about to read it when Henry stopped me painfully. No, Elena, don't. Seeing this, I directly said, okay, since Henry doesn't want me to read it, then let the waiter distribute a photocopy to each of you. As soon as I finished speaking, the waiter quickly started handing them out. In no time, various sounds filled the entire banquet hall, and everyone's look at Henry was obviously much more complicated. Now that I've cleared up one mystery with this gift, let's move on to the second gift. After saying that, the big screen behind me started playing. In the video, Henry was playing with the child he had with Sophia, going out to eat together, and doing activities at home together. It's amazing what money can do. The private detective even managed to get footage of them at home. The child in the video is called Luke. His mother is Sophia, and his father is. I paused for a moment and pointed at Henry. It's him, my husband Henry. Gasps. Everyone except me was dumbfounded. Henry's face was as pale as a sheet. I also deliberately noticed the expression on my good friend Nora's face, which was also quite something. Before everyone could recover from the shock of the first two gifts, I presented the third gift. It was still a video, but this time the female lead was replaced by another woman, Nora. It was all scenes of Henry and Nora on dates, really eye-popping. There were quite a few colleagues from the hospital present, including the hospital director. Nora was extremely angry under their stares. She pointed at me and cursed, "Elena, you actually betrayed me. You're not human." Seeing her like this, I shook my head regretfully. "Nora, I regarded you as a good friend and held nothing back from you. But you shamelessly slept with my man. You're such a slut." I paused for a moment and then continued, "I actually prepared a gift for you today too. But I was hesitating about whether to bring it out in front of so many people. Just now, you made the decision for me." After saying that, I winked at a waiter nearby. Soon, everyone present, including Henry, received a few photos. The photos were all scenes of a man and a woman together. The woman was naturally Nora, but the man wasn't Henry, but Sebastian. At this moment, except for the last big gift, I had presented all the others. I just smiled as I watched everyone's reactions. This feeling was really great. The first one to recover was Henry. He looked at me painfully. "Elena, is all this true?" I raised my eyebrows. "It's all true." "That?" Henry swallowed hard. He looked really uncomfortable. "Is that azoospermia thing also true?" I nodded gently. "Arg." Henry hugged his head in pain. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Why? I didn't tell you for your own good. I didn't want you to lose your dignity as a man. But look how you treated me. Not only did you have an affair, but you also schemed to hire someone to seduce me and wanted to take all the marital property. You don't deserve to be a man." After holding it in for so long, I just had to let it out. He really didn't deserve it. Under my barrage of accusations, Henry was frozen in place, completely forgetting to react. At this time, Nora suddenly rushed in front of me. She grabbed my neck with both hands. "I'll strangle you. You've ruined me. I'll strangle you." She looked like a madwoman. I quickly did a shoulder throw, and Nora fell on the ground in a mess. "Nora, I trusted you so much, but you seduced my husband. Even now, you don't show the slightest sign of regret." "Fine, then I won't spare you any face either." With that, I took out another test report. This is a syphilis test report. The name of the person being tested is Sebastian. As soon as these words were spoken, Nora was immediately dumbfounded. Sebastian is the man in the photos with Nora. He works as a waiter in a bar. Besides being a bit good-looking, his private life is extremely messy. Nora was attracted by his good looks and also coveted my husband Henry's money, playing around between the two men. "So, Henry, you've also got a dirty disease. And that Mistress Sophia, you all have it." As soon as I finished speaking, Nora seemed to remember something. She pointed at me and said, "Then you've got it too, haha. You're not spared either. You and Henry are husband and wife." I had expected her to say that. So I showed her another test report. "Sorry, but I really don't have it. In the past 6 months, Henry and I hadn't been together that many times. He had 2 women outside, and when he came home, he was already too tired to deal with me. Half a year ago, I got a mycoplasma infection in my gynecology. The doctor said it was best not to have sex until it was cured, or to take protective measures every time we had sex. Because of this, I escaped this disaster. Now thinking about it, even God was willing to help me. Actually, since the day Sebastian and Nora both got drunk at my house, I had been suspicious, and the private detective helped me solve all the doubts. The report of Sebastian's earlier physical examination in the hospital was also obtained by the private detective. Thinking about it now, it's really scary. If I had been tricked by Sebastian, I would have become an infected person too. There's another thing. That is, Nora wasn't just with Henry. She was also the mistress of the director of our hospital. And the director was present today. I believe he must hate Nora to death. However, those are not things I should care about anymore. I got my revenge. I let Henry know that he was being cuckolded, and he lost the right to be a father for the rest of his life. A wedding anniversary accomplished my revenge plan. It was really satisfying. Then, I sued Henry for divorce. To my surprise, he didn't resist. He gave me whatever I wanted, which was almost like he left the marriage with nothing. This made me feel a bit soft-hearted towards him. He still seemed like a man. 7 years of marriage. It would be a lie to say I wasn't sad. I loved him and took on everything for him. But in return, he had an affair and schemed against me outside. After such a big thing happened, Henry's good image collapsed. He couldn't even keep his job in the company anymore and lost his job. Nora's fate was even worse. Just as I expected, the director went to settle scores with her after going back. She not only lost her job as a doctor but was also beaten up badly and had several fractures. Even so, Nora didn't dare to call the police. She knew very well that if she really called the police, she might even lose her life. The only thing that was a bit of a pity was Sophia. She was the real mistress in my marriage with Henry. I heard that she fled as soon as she got wind of the situation and disappeared with the child. Even the house that Henry bought for her was sold at a low price overnight. She might be the only one who wasn't affected by the whole incident. Oh, no, she would also be infected with that dirty disease. But, it still wasn't as satisfying as it could have been. My life returned to peace. To be able to work and live more quietly, I changed to work in another hospital. I thought it would be nice to live like this for the rest of my life. I didn't want to look for a man again. However, I received a cash transfer of 100,000 yuan in my bank card. The name of the other account was Henry. What was he going to do? The marital property between him and I had already been divided. He left the marriage with nothing. Why did he give me another 100,000 yuan after the divorce? I couldn't get through to Henry's phone no matter how I tried. I vaguely felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, my former mother-in-law came to find me. She told me that Henry had been arrested and was now in the hospital. How could he be in the hospital if he was arrested? My former mother-in-law looked sad. She said that Henry was so angry that he had been looking for Sophia and her son for a long time. Finally, he found them. He seriously injured them and then attempted suicide but failed. He was now being rescued in the hospital. My former mother-in-law was in tears. Elena, Mom is sorry. So sorry. Henry had an accident. I don't want to live anymore. Mom will apologize to you and then give you Henry's letter before leaving. Where are you going? I didn't have a father-in-law. Henry's father had passed away a long time ago. He and his mother depended on each other. If something happened to him, wouldn't my mother-in-law do something stupid? I persuaded my former mother-in-law to stay with kind words. After 7 years of being mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, I couldn't be a heartless person. In the letter, Henry said many words of apology. It was his last words. It could be seen that he didn't want to live anymore. However, God gave him another chance again. Sophia and her son didn't die. They were just seriously injured. I hired an expensive lawyer for Henry. He had left some hope in the end. I didn't want to be too harsh either. Besides, Sophia had deceived Henry first. He was only sentenced to 11 years. Alas. After that, I took my mother-in-law to the place where Henry and I used to live and gave her 2,000 yuan for living expenses every month. I don't know why I did these things. Maybe it's just because I'm soft-hearted. Next month, I can visit Henry. My mother-in-law said she was afraid she couldn't bear the excitement. She wanted to go but was also afraid. To comfort her, I had to say that I would go to see Henry and would deposit more money for him. Alas. I can't help but wonder whether what I'm doing is right or wrong.